Hey there, it's Micah with Mastery, and in this video I'm going to expand on the last video. We did a little bit of basic mapping, but I wanted to explain some of these steps a little bit more and how you could maybe use the two together. So we explained that this was an online process on the top, this was an offline process on the bottom, just meaning they might have filled out a web form, got an email, got free info, and bought, or they might have called in, had a rep actually manually follow up, give them a proposal until they accepted it, then follow up on the invoice and make sure the payment was received, and then fulfill some services. A couple of basic ideas still at the mapping stage before we dive into these things is that one thing you could very easily do is you could say that as part of the fulfillment of products, at some point we want them to call us, and so we're going to make it so that these sequences actually line up on back of each other. And I will minimize this a little bit so you can kind of see that in this more linear fashion. But if I connected these two, then it would basically be saying, well, we do have this front-end informational process where we want them to opt in online and get an email and so forth. But if at any time, let's say in the free information you had your phone number, if at any time they decide to call, they might jump up in this process and end up with a salesperson following up with them manually instead of just this free information, maybe some emails. So if it was all linear, that the product was kind of a front-end lead-in for a service that you sold later, this would make a lot of sense. This being connected here, all it really means in this case is that since this little white flag is going to surrender, that if they did the call, it would kind of push all this stuff back. So I should probably disconnect this and say that we want to maybe have these two run parallel to each other even. So we could say, well, right here, what typically happens is it's during the free information. So they're going through this process, and potentially in the free information they could branch. They could go to not only purchasing online, but to also getting the call. So we could come over here and we could say, well, we will allow them to do either. Whether they purchase online or call, we don't really care. Both of these things can reach back and cancel this whole thing so the customer can move on. A couple other concepts in campaign mapping is that you can actually clone this whole thing. So let's say that I wanted to split this and I said, well, all my online stuff is going to be managed by one person. All my offline stuff is going to be managed by a completely different person, and they both can't log into the same single campaign in Infusion at the same time. So what do we do here? Well, what I would do is I would click on this campaign button, and I'll zoom back in. You want to click on the campaign button and you want to make a copy of this. So I would say copy of sales, that's fine for now, I'll rename it. And what it's actually done is it's created a second campaign. So if I go back to my list of campaigns, I still have my sales campaign, and now I have copy of sales, which are the same. So let's go into both, and let's say that sales we were going to keep as our online and copy of sales was the offline. So let's go ahead and cut out the pieces that we don't like. So here in sales, just for clarity first, we'll rename it and we'll say sales